Welcome, everybody, back to We're Live, Pal, with myself, Double G, and Andrew Zarian. It is the day the NBA is back in season. The NLCS is happening. The World Series is coming this weekend. But, Andrew, I have a question for you, because this is even more important than all of those things, which is, do you know whose birthday it is today?
I do. I wish them a happy birthday. Our dear leader, David Meltzer.
It is. It is his birthday today. And he said he told Brian last night he's going to Half Moon Bay. He's not working. And Brian said, yes, I realized this Tuesday schedule because I noticed that you watch NXT after AEW, and thus that is why we record so late on Wednesday nights. But happy birthday to Dave. We went out on Friday. It was Dave's birthday. My co-host on Fight Game Podcast, John LaRocca's birthday is later this week. Also, one of our dear friends, Miguel Rubio, it's also his birthday this month. So we all went out. We all went to Italian food, got a nice party. I got to see Dave's son, Cody, and his significant other, Trinity. So all in all, fun times. But I will tell you, when Dave is not at his computer desk, he is not the one breaking news to people. It is us with phones who are breaking news to him. One of those pieces of news was, hey, Dave, did you hear that Impact Wrestling is going back to TNA? And Andrew, marketing brain time. What did you think about this move back to the old brand of TNA?
You know, they have a pay-per-view called Hard to Kill, right?
Yeah.
Forget about that. They just all the pay-per-views have to be called Immortal. I have never seen anything like it. You know what? I have to tell you, for the longest time, was a huge advocate of getting rid of the TNA name. Too much stink on it. Too much the worst of WCW. Right? They got the worst. Yeah. That was the thing. Even in their best, and they had some great matches. One of my favorite matches of all time: Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, all that whole series, fantastic stuff. You know what? I think enough time has passed where that old guard, that old feeling of TNA now has become nostalgia. So it's almost like if WCW resurrected tomorrow, right? Would people have that anti-WCW mentality? No, because time has changed and the audience has shifted. So I think if they were going to do it, you know what? They're right. Scott D'Amore said something great. He said every time we go to a show, people are chanting TNA. Why don't we change our name to the company to the thing that they're chanting it to? Which makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I agree, but I also think it's not going to matter one bit. I think it helps them in any way to rebrand. I think it's more of like a fan service thing, which is great because, like you said, they have a hardcore fan base who is never going to give up on TNA/Impact. And you know the other thing, it makes our jobs easier because I always have to correct myself. It's the Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson thing. Every time I want to talk about Impact Wrestling, I always call them Impact Wrestling. So might as well. It's good for us. Yeah. We don't have to worry about Impact Wrestling anymore.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, right? How that company has survived so long. I mean, they're 22 years old in every version. It's still the same company, 22 years old. That brand has survived, and it's created a little niche in pro wrestling for themselves. You know, now I don't think they'll ever go. The nuclear apocalypse could happen any day now. TNA's surviving.
Yeah, the company bought the TV station, so don't have to worry about where they're going to have to sell the rights. But maybe, I don't know. I don't know what you could do other than it's the ultimate. This company is exactly what it is and exactly what it's going to be. And it's not like they are NWA, like Billy Corgan, trying to go back to the past and look to the future at the same time. He wants NWA territories, and he wants to put them on the CW network, supposedly, according to the report that I saw.
So we had Billy on Friday. I had Billy on the show on Friday. Yeah, I actually... You know, he gets a lot of crap. I always have great conversations with Billy.
He's kind of a jerk though online, right?
I don't feel it. You know
he
what?
Rubs people the wrong way.
I get it, but you know, I was talking to my wife about this, right? And because of my day job, I deal with a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, I mean, Garrett, and I deal with
Yes.
acts from that era, tremendous
Some
acts
great
from that era,
some great artists, by the way, you deal with.
from that era and
Fantastic
currently,
artists.
right? He's a rock star, man. And you know
Yeah, for
what?
sure.
Sometimes, listen, I'm not big on being mean to people. I'm not a jerk. I'm not an asshole. I don't like it when people are. But if you have a little edge to yourself and you've been a rock star for 20 something years, you kind of, you know what? You kind of get a buy from me. He's always great with us. I've never had an issue with him. I know some other people have an issue, but he was a great conversation. He spoke about this TV deal. Obviously, he didn't mention the CW, but I think we all know it's the CW. He can't talk about it until it's final. He spoke about CM Punk and how if he would welcome him. He gave a great answer about CM Punk and where he's at. I always have a good conversation with Billy. I've never had a negative with him, so I have a different perspective, and obviously we do shows here, right? My job is to get you the best interview that I can, regardless
Mhm.
of what other issues have been with him. You know what? I had a great interview with him, and he's never. Not one bad thing to say about him as far as a guest on the show.
I will say, I do mean online. I've never met him. I've never
Yeah.
talked to him. It is just his online Twitter persona where I could see how he rubs people the wrong way. But you're a very nice guy, and not to say Rich is not a very nice guy,
No, he's
but
a terrible, crude monster.
what does Rich think about Billy Corgan? That's what I want to know.
Listen, Rich is Rich is in rock bands. He's been a musician for his entire adult life. I think he knows the flow of things.
Yeah, no, for sure. Rich, but I just know you are a marketer and a promoter, and you're thinking of, well, I want to have this guy on again. So of course, I want to, I want him to be a good interview.
I did a show. I had Tila Tequila, okay, on a show that I did about 15 years ago, and I got into a verbal battle with this woman, and she threw a bottle of Pellegrino at my head. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
These
What,
are the
plastic bottle or a
experiences I had.
glass bottle?
Glass bottle.
Oh my god.
So
that doesn't sound like the Tila Tequila that I know.
It may or may not have been Tila Tequila. I don't want to disparage anybody. This all could be an act of fiction. This could be a fictional story. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know anything about that woman outside of that. I just, these are the scenarios I'm in. So if you're not throwing a glass bottle at my head, you're kind of okay. If you're not telling me to go F myself, you're not throwing a glass bottle at my head, I'm fine with you.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, this is gonna be just kind of like a cornucopia of topics, because there's not really one gigantic topic that we need to talk about, but I have some small ones, so we won't spend all that much time on these, but there's just some hits that I just want your opinion on. But the first one, so something happened on ROH Twitter where they decided, or Tony Khan decided, that the last ROH pay-per-view of the year is not actually going to pay-per-view. They are offering it as part of the Honor Club service, so you don't even have to change. You don't have to add more money to your subscription. If you are subscribed, or if you are going to subscribe, you are going to get this December pay-per-view. And this kind of, I think, relates to something that you had reported weeks ago that we were kind of wondering when they were going to start talking about it more, which is this December AEW pay-per-view. Now, the reason to me why you take this ROH pay-per-view off is because you don't want to go to the well one too many times, as Gorilla Monsoon would say, when it comes to your pay-per-view audience. You already did 3 shows in a matter of several weeks, and so you don't want to do that necessarily again. So that makes sense to me. Let's make this ROH pay-per-view. Let's put it on Honor Club, and let's actually have a real AEW pay-per-view in December. Does that still sound like it's the plan to you?
That is the plan. So if you followed this chronicle on the show, I've been hinting at this because, I don't like ruining things unless unless I have solidified proof, right? A conversation, a text message, I see something, and around, I think it was a week prior to the Arthur Ashe show, I started hearing rumblings of a Friday pay-per-view. Okay. So now you can kind of piece it together, right? Like, listen, I always say I'm not a journalist. I don't attempt to be one. I will never be one. There are people far better than me at this that are media trained. I'm a media personality that has friends in the industry, right? That's how I always say it.
Yes.
I am not Dave Meltzer. Dave is a billion times better. I'm not Sean Ross Sapp. He's a billion times better at doing anything that I remotely do in wrestling as far as reporting goes. But I was told a week prior that there was a December AEW pay-per-view. And then I heard there's a December final battle pay-per-view for Ring of Honor. So now you're like, okay, well, which could it be, right? It can't be both. They're not going to do a show, 15 days apart. But they are. They're doing a Ring of Honor show on the 15th, and they're doing a December 30th AEW pay-per-view. And I believe it's in the New York market. And I would say if it isn't anywhere, I mean, you could look at the calendar. I think I did this. UBS Arena. Let's do this. I mean, can you do the Garden? Probably not. That would be huge if they could, but I don't think that's happening. But if I'm going to take an intelligent guess, I think the Nassau Coliseum would be a great venue for this. They do have Billy Joel the following day doing New Year's Eve at the Nassau Coliseum, so I don't know if that would affect it. I think who's doing John Mayer's doing New Year's?
John Mayer.
At UBS? Yeah, I think there's a John Mayer concert coming up. Hold on, let's see. No, St. John's versus Hofstra in men's basketball on the 30th. So that is not UBS Arena is out of the runnings. Now you're out of buildings. You don't have too many options.
Yes.
So, I mean, can they do the Nassau Coliseum? Sure. Would it make sense for MJF and to do something big there with Billy the following night? Yeah, great stuff. I'm not certain on the Coliseum. I'm just, I'm leaning towards that if I were to do a process of elimination. But a December 30th pay-per-view, can you get? I don't know. I don't know what that market's like in December. The last week right before, New Year's weekend.
It sounds like a busy weekend in New York to me. So they kind of want to be part of a busy weekend. And kind of like why, remember when WWE tried to run that day one pay-per-view because they wanted to be around the, all the things that were going on in some of these cities where, maybe you had a bowl game or whatever. So, I could see why that's an attractive date to run.
I don't know how attractive it is, honestly. By the way, the Barclays is open that day, so I don't like that building. I hate that building, dude. I hate that building, and people think I'm insane for saying that. You walk into Madison Square Garden, you walk into Barclays. I feel like I'm walking into like an old stadium. It's so high,
so tight, knees all scrunched. And the other bad memory I have of Barclays?
Yeah.
So this is when Adam Cole was in NXT, and I went to the restroom, and a man who had two belts draped over both of his shoulders tried to get an Adam Cole Bebe chant while we were all at the urinal.
At the urinal? Yeah, he's a belt guy. I would expect nothing more, nothing less. Was he drenched in sweat? Because that also comes with the. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you about my experience at Barclays. I think I was at the same show that you were talking about. It was Adam Cole and Gargano in the main, right? It
was that Mania 35 weekend?
Yeah, Mania 35 weekend. Yeah. I left right before the show ended. I couldn't sit in my freaking seat. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's bad.
I just said, F this. I'm out of here.
Yeah, and I was so tired that weekend because we were just doing so many shows, and so they dimmed the lights and we were sitting high, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a tough one, and it was a tough one. I should really watch that show back on TV because my thought watching live was this show is terrible and I'm bored and I want to go home. That was my thought.
Yeah, you know what? The show wasn't bad. I did do that. I did rewatch it. The show wasn't bad. It was just the building is weird. I don't like that building, and I know some people love it. It just does nothing for me.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been to Mecca. I've been to the Garden, right?
I was at the Garden as well, and it's so much better. It is
Dude,
amazing.
I walk in there, I go through the side door, I take the elevator to the VIP club. Greg has my drink ready for me already.
It's awesome.
It's
I
every
love
time
it.
it's the best experience over there. But,
Yeah.
now the question is how many pay-per-views did AEW run this year? Right? If we do the math.
I think we did the math before. It was like 11 or something, or it
I
was
think
on.
yeah.
They were on path to be at 11 or something like that.
Listen, no pro wrestling company has ever regretted going monthly. Ever. There's so much money to generate. If you could get 100,000 buys every show, you're generating a couple $1,000,000
So
every month.
I don't disagree with you at all, but I will say the one thing that is different when you go to this monthly thing is for at least for the secondary company. I'm not talking about WWE because WWE did this successfully where they had
Yeah.
Raw, SmackDown, then a pay-per-view once a month. AEW has 3 shows, though we'll say 5 hours. So 3 shows a week, 5 hours. Then you add their long 4-hour pay-per-view. It's going to be a lot for some months
Yeah.
for sure.
Well,
And
I hope if they go monthly.
well, okay, here's the other thing. I think we are okay with it because the pay-per-views are generally good, really good. And so if you have that one show that might not be fantastic, then that might be when people are going, oh, so much to watch, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like me.
Yeah.
I'm just like that every week. Oh, so much to watch. I literally saw Battle of the Belts on my DVR after I finished watching
Oh,
Collision.
brutal.
And I did this like hesitation and I kind of did a sigh. And I was like, okay, I need to listen to that sigh because I don't want to watch this show. And it's not necessary, though. I kind of wanted to see where they were going with Chris and Willow, but it was just like I had to tap out. I didn't want to have a bad time watching what was probably a totally okay show.
I'll say this about AEW, and I don't think people know a lot about this, but they've had to really pivot tremendously, right? Like Battle of the Belts, what we have with Battle of the Belts today was never the intention of that concept. They wanted to do a quarterly pay-per-view level show on Turner. I mean, that was the goal. That's what they wanted to do.
Yeah,
they wanted to do
fail.
They wanted to do Clash of Champions. That was the plan, and I think because of so many moving parts that happened in that company, it just totally derailed after, what was it? After like the second one, right? Nobody really cared about it.
There was I want to say it was like a Sammy against Dustin, maybe. Was it Sammy and Dustin? I don't think it was Sammy and Cody, but there was one Battle of the Belts where I knew, I was like, okay, I think this is not exactly the way that they thought. Because I remember being out just kind of running around and I stopped to get something to eat. And I was like, oh, Battle of the Belts is on. I'm just going to turn it on my phone while I wait for my food. And then I was like, I don't even think it's worth it for me to watch the 20 minutes or whatever. Like it was just like, it was like just content at that point. So, yeah, they don't need it. I'm sure it is. They are contracted to do it, so it's fine. But like I said, they already have 5 hours every week. So you added that 6th hour, and I was like, okay, I need to tap out here because it's just not happening.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I did not. I watched it the following day. I didn't stay up. I thought Collision was a good show, at least the first half. The opener, that match, it kind of set the tone for me. And then after that, it didn't really matter what anybody did because I got to see Danielson in a great match with Andrade. Was it a would
dream
I say
match?
It was a dream match? You know what? I got to tell you something, dude. I really like Andrade.
He's one of my favorites.
He really is one of my favorites. Just like I like his swagger tremendously.
Yeah.
I also sometimes go to his Instagram and I screenshot like his post and I send it to my wife and I'm like, "What do you think of this outfit?" And I actually buy it. There's a great photo of him wearing this camel coat that I bought. I think the guy has style. He's a cool guy. I could hang out with Andrade. I could be in venues. Maybe Andrade could be in a venue that I hang out in. Maybe that's what it is, right?
Speaking about good hangs, we are going to spend the last 5 to 10 minutes talking about who would be a good hang? Now, we've both
Oh, that's
hung
it.
out with a handful of people before, but like just based
Yeah.
on their persona, and the reason why I thought about this, and we'll tease this for the end, is I'm watching Damian Priest, and I'm like, that is a dude that I would hang out with. Like that
Oh,
dude, if you
100%.
want to go to a bar, just shoot the stuff. He just seems like such a cool dude. And so that was like my thought behind it. And also because, like I said, we don't have too many dominating topics. But let's move on to the next thing, which is, are they setting us up for Raw versus SmackDown War Games? And if so, why, when they've never been able to really make the stakes on this Survivor Series show work in that way?
Um, I think because of the War Games element and the success that they've seen with War Games, I think, first of all, I think Survivor Series being a War Games show makes so much more sense to me. This is a nice evolution of the concept of Survivor Series. People forget for a long time, and Garrett is in that boat. This was like the pay-per-view you wanted to see because you got to see Hogan team up with people normally he doesn't in the ring with people he's normally not in the ring with. The concept of this was great. And they were able to get it that 1 year. They did the Raw versus SmackDown, and in the ring, I think it was Nakamura and Triple H. Right? Do you remember that War Games? And I thought
Yes.
that it wasn't War Games. Sorry, that's Survivor Series.
Survivor
I
Series.
was blown away by it. I was like, man, this is cool. And they did it again the following year. There was this great moment where I forgot who it was. Two people, I think it was AJ and someone. I forgot what the combination was. It was awesome. I loved it. But generally, you get that once or twice. You're not going to get that every year. So making War Games happen, I'm okay with it. I have confidence in Triple H's method. What do you think?
But that's what it sounds like to me. Is Triple H is like, okay, Vince never went all the way with this Raw versus SmackDown thing. And I'm going to show you all how we can make this thing important. But again, I just don't know what are the stakes. Like, who loses something or who wins something? Is this a cup? Like, the NBA copied a soccer thing with this in-league tournament, and they're going to have this in-season tournament that happens at the end of December. And the team that wins this is the first inaugural in-season tournament winner, and they get this cup and they get some money. Even those stakes in the NBA, I'm just like, we'll see if this works. I don't know, what this means. I don't know why people would want to risk, injury or risk whatever by winning this tournament that is not the NBA championship. So what can Triple H do? Is it Aldis and Pierce? Is it something between them? Somebody has to dress up as the gobbledygooker on the other person's show. Like, what is going to be the thing that makes us interested in who wins and loses Raw versus SmackDown? And this is kind of funny. I guarantee you Raw's winning. You know why?
Why?
SmackDown is the lame duck show. They don't give a crap about what Fox thinks about their roster right now, and they're coming to USA. So Raw is totally winning. Raw might even win 5-0. Or
didn't they do that one year?
I guess it's a war game, so I guess you just maybe it's a slaughter.
Yeah.
You don't have to actually eliminate, but yeah.
But you know what would be really can Pierce still wrestle? He's not retired, right?
Well, so that was the other thing that I was wondering about, which is
Nick Aldis versus Adam Pierce.
Should
Holy
they
moly, I'm into that.
Should they be the fifth members of each team?
I don't know, but Nick Aldis needs to wrestle. That guy, you don't get a guy that looks like him. Forget about people saying his style is slow, is boring. I don't feel that way. I think it's it's a throwback style you don't see too often. But he has the size, he has the body, he has the looks. He's a good promo. How are you not utilizing him? He's 36 years old.
Yeah,
he's a young man. He's younger than me. Look at that. I got to go for my Botox, dude. It's happening. It's all happening. Everything is falling. I have tape behind me. They clamp my skin back before I go on the show. I'm like Joe Biden. They prep me before I come on. I got to look youthful. But I think, if you do a 5-on-5 Raw versus SmackDown, who would be on the team? Is Roman on the team?
Can't be. Jimmy and Jay have to be on opposite sides, I think.
Jimmy and Jay are on opposite sides. Does Cody go in it? Does
Sammy and Big Kev have to be on opposite sides?
Oh, that's good. You could have them go at it. That's a big pop for the audience, right?
Yeah.
Maybe CM Punk is the secret man in the end.
Oh my God.
Lights go off, lights come
Was
on. He
was he
has that
really at the
stupid
Impact
red
show?
bag. What was that?
Was he at the Impact show?
He was, yeah, he was.
Wow. It reminded me of when we went to see New Japan in San Jose in February, and CM Punk was there at the show, and the birthday boy was also there in the same section and like a row in front of one CM Punk. And after I asked Dave, I was like, did he acknowledge that you were there? He's like, no, he
I would have
didn't, not
waved
at
if I
all.
was Dave. I would have just waved. I would be like, hey, Phil. Does Punk not like Dave right now?
I think it depends.
It depends. Okay.
I think it really depends whether or not he can utilize Dave or not, and if he feels like Dave is being too honest about what's going on, then he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing. So also, as I go back to the dinner on Friday, I was able to tell Dave some news as it was happening. Kazuchika Okada's on Dynamite this Wednesday.
Yeah. in a tag.
And so Dave and I talked about this on Friday on Wrestling Observer Radio. He believes that Tony Khan is more inspired to just put on these crazy matches, these crazy cards, he's building up these shows, and you add a Kazuchika Okada. I think he thinks Tony was inspired kind of by the competition of Tuesday a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so now we got Kazuchika Okada just showing up on Dynamite. No angle, just announced on Twitter. And you get to see, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time on Dynamite. I'm in. I can't wait. We're going to get tag team Okada. This is not main event, New Japan.
Very different
Wrestle
Okada,
Kingdom Okada. But still, just the charisma that dude has just walking to the ring is good enough for me. So what do you think about some of because Tony has been, the dream match, he did the dream match thing, and you and I both love Andrade probably more than most. I still don't think it was a dream match necessarily. I liked the match a lot. And whenever I get to see Bryan Danielson wrestle on television, I love it. But he seems to be, big time promoter. He's trying to push stuff. I think we're better for it. I think AEW is better for it. But do you sense that, he's for whatever reason just on a heater right now?
I think he, it's back to basics, right? And I always say that. What worked for you when that show started, when Dynamite first started? And I use this as a great example, right? Claudio, Cesaro and WWE. Mm-hmm. You could have Cesaro and Bryan.
He might
actually
still be Cesaro, according to Jim Ross, by the way.
According to Jim Ross, yeah. According to Jim Ross, it's Edge and Cesaro, yeah. And Daniel Bryan. Poor Jim. I know, it's hard. It's hard. I can't not call Edge Adam Copeland.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It doesn't work.
It's absolutely impossible.
It's so much easier. And there's too many Adams in our company. You got a cowboy Adam. You got a reformed a vampire Adam. You got an Adam that doesn't know who his friends are. You got a lot of Adams there. I would, when that show first started, like you could put on, and this is not a knock against anybody, right? You could put on Trent Beretta and Claudio. I know he wasn't there. And that match would mean something because you're like, oh, wow, I've never seen this before. And they would have a banger. They would have a phenomenal match. And people got used to it. They got used to seeing these really cool matches. Big Build, that first match that he had, I was into it because it was an attraction. I want to see what happens. Even if not every match was a 5-star match or a 4-star match, you were still intrigued because you knew that they were going to give you something really good. It's not going to be a 2-minute squash match. On the WWE side, you put on the same match, nobody really cared. You put on, Andrade and Danielson, right? That match has happened in WWE, I think once.
I'm sure WWE did not build it up all that well.
How
make it feel that big of a deal.
But AEW didn't really build it up either, outside of Tony saying, "I have a dream match for you."
Yeah, it was
Right?
the
There was no
it was the
build.
whole angle to watch Rampage. That
Yeah,
was
it
the
was
whole
an
thing.
angle to watch. Yeah, collision. But I watched it and I loved it. Those two guys are two of my favorite people. I love both their styles. Their wrestling styles are great. And was it a dream match? Yeah, you know what? What is your definition of a dream match? Okada and Danielson? Yeah, sure, dream match. Okada and Andrade? Maybe. Andrade Roosh, I'd love to see that. Andrade Mystico, which probably will never happen. I would love to see that. By the way, I do want to talk to you about Mystico because I did not think that match was good. Am I crazy for not thinking that?
I would say, and this is me not being the world's biggest Lucha Libre fan, I love the pageantry. I love the history of CMLL and all of that, but I am not their target demographic necessarily as a
Yeah.
wrestling fan. So, but I did watch Rampage specifically to watch that match, and I think I even watched it live, which may have been like the first time
So did I, yeah.
I've watched Rampage live in like the longest time. And it's because I just wanted to see what they were going to do with that match. So good job by Tony. He got me to watch Rampage live. It didn't need to be 2 out of 3 falls because I thought the first 2 falls were super hokey and phony's a bad word, but super hokey and not important. And they were just creating to set up the third fall. And I thought the third fall was good, but I wish that third fall was the whole match. I didn't need to see the other stuff.
I think it may be that I just don't connect to the lucha style as much as others. Maybe that's what it was. There was a lot of waiting. There was so much waiting. And if your camera guys are not used to that style, they're going to catch a lot of stuff that they shouldn't be catching on the camera. And I felt that there was a lot of that. It was a lot of hand holding and waiting. But he's ultra talented, and to a great amount of people, they thought that match was killer. They loved it.
And most
I wasn't in that boat.
importantly, and this is probably the only time you can do this. But maybe if you hold Mystico off for another year, maybe if you don't bring him back to that market for another year, maybe you can dial up 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it was of the tickets they sold once they announced that match, because it's clear that worked, right? It's clear that helped that building when it came to Dynamite and Rampage. So that was really smart and it worked. And I just don't think he's going to be able to do that, many more times unless he really holds it off for like once a year in that market. Let's do this to go again, and let's have this really cool match that, the US audience doesn't really get to see.
Yeah, if people enjoyed it, that's great. For me, yeah.
All right. What do you think about Crown Jewel so far? They've been adding some matches to Crown Jewel. They just added Cody against Damian Priest from Raw last night, and that is the new match. But you get Roman Reigns and LA Knight on this show. It does feel like it's a little bit more important of a Saudi Arabia show to me.
Well, they don't have Brock Lesnar this year. First time.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, first time. I'd love to see Cody and Damian. I think he's one of my favorites. You have Logan Paul. He's the big attraction with Rey Mysterio. He should win the United States title, in my opinion.
Did you see the quarters on Smackdown?
No, well, I haven't seen. I just saw the rating.
He had the best segment on Smackdown as far as the quarters.
Of course he did, yeah.
Yeah,
listen, forget about what people think of him. Forget about your personal opinion. The guy, he is special. All these people in media are not idiots that they're propelling him to this top tier of, stardom in whatever he's doing. There's something in this guy. He is a draw.
He needs to stop talking about this Dylan Dennis fight, though. It's pretty clear to me that no WWE fans know who Dylan Dennis is.
No, he doesn't even watch that fight.
He doesn't mention the guy's name either. He just keeps talking about this fight that he had. And
well, according to them, didn't they have 2.5 million, 5 million people watch that fight, right? 65 million people watched the fight.
I bet you it was probably one of the more pirated pay-per-views out there in history.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I don't know anybody who actually paid for it, but I do know some folks who watched it.
Well, think about it. What's its target demo? Logan Paul's age demo is what? Young, older, 16, 17 plus
18
to like 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, economically, you're kind of tightened at at that
I
age.
thought he
So
cut a good promo last night too. I don't
I
always
did
like
too.
his promos; they seem a little forced, but for whatever reason, when he and Samantha Irvin is his target, he gets pretty. His promos
Yeah,
get pretty
and
good.
she's great. What a great uh, uh, um, ring announcer,
And
Samantha.
she's playing the Lillian Garcia role. She's playing the Fink role from
Yeah,
yesteryear, where you just use them to get heat, and then the babyface comes out. So yeah, I thought she did a good job too.
great.
Okay, so a couple of the matches: Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. That is being built up, though. I'm not sure that I understand Seth's taste in young, in females, because we know that he's married to Becky Lynch,
Yes.
but he had a small insinuation about Rhea Ripley and what she could do for him, and then he went, "Ew, come on, Seth." Let's be real.
I think his search.
Ew.
I think he's exposing some of his search history habits, and then backing off on it. I guess.
I just didn't know. I was just like, ew. Like, it's such like a 12, like a not even 12. It's like an 8-year-old, 8-year-old thing to do, is to say ew when it comes to the opposite sex. All right. What else is on that show? So, Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax versus Shayna Baszler versus Zoe Stark versus Raquel Rodriguez. They did a contract signing in which 4 of the women were inside the ring, and it was a stand-up comedy night for Nia Jax. She had the mic for pretty much the whole time. She tried to make fun of Raquel Rodriguez for being in Texas. The show was in Dallas last night, and then they all fought, and Rhea was cackling on the sidelines there. So that is another match, and then the only other match signed so far is Mysterio and Paul, like Andrew said. Let me see. One of Andrew and I may have a frozen screen. Let's see. I have to ask producer John. Okay, so it is Andrew. I was worried that it was me and that I was just doing this long soliloquy for nothing. So I'll keep holding down the fort until Andrew jumps back on. All right, because the next topic that I wanted to talk about there you are. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
good. No, I just finished talking about the card, and I also went over the Nia Jax segment from last night where she.
No, I heard you the whole time.
Oh,
the
okay,
whole time
good.
I was hearing you. Yeah, I just couldn't.
Good.
You couldn't see me.
Good. All right, another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is related to the Logan Paul thing, which is Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. Is this interest you at all?
No, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. I get the appeal, right? But who is it appealing to?
It is appealing. It's probably the same audience that the Logan Paul and the Jake Paul stuff appeals to.
Yeah, but there's no chance that this is going to be a competitive fight.
No, not at all.
Like Tyson Fury, for a lot of people are critical of his style, right? But this guy is one of the hardest hitting people in boxing history. He is part of that, revival of heavyweight boxing that we've seen over the last, 5 or 6 years. I get it's a payday. I guess it's a spectacle. I'm not against it, by the way. I'm not against these, I guess, attraction fights. But who benefits from this? I guess it's a financial benefit. Nobody else. Fury, he benefits if he wins. You still know that he's dominant. But if he gets knocked out, his whole career's done.
Yeah, I think he's willing to risk that. This is you know what it is? It is a worse version of Floyd versus Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
And worse version in every single way, because at least with that fight, those guys were really reliant on the pay-per-view buys as far as how they were going to make their money. So they talked it up, and it became, I think, the second highest drawing fight of all time to Pacquiao Mayweather. So that's how successful
Really?
that thing was.
Pacquiao Mayweather outdrew it?
Pacquiao Mayweather outdrew
Wow.
it for just pay-per-view buys.
Yeah.
And so the reason that thing worked is because Conor was still on top in the UFC. He was so famous. He has his fan base, and then you put him against the guy who was the biggest star in boxing. And you had both the UFC, because they were money partners in this whole thing. You had boxing and UFC selling that fight. So that's what made that thing so big. In this case, the UFC is not involved in this in any way. Ngannou is not with UFC. He's now with PFL.
You know what? It makes sense. It's in Saudi Arabia, so
It's
this
in
is a
Saudi
huge
Arabia, so
payday for
that's
everybody.
where they
Yeah.
make their money.
It's not
They
even
are
the buy
not
rate. Yeah.
they're not reliant on the pay-per-view buys at all. So Fury himself, I'm sure Fury would sort of consider this to be like a sparring contest, right? For Ngannou, if Fury really wants to make him look bad, he can really make Ngannou look bad. Not
Yeah.
to say that would really have an effect on his PFL business. Maybe if he was still in the UFC, it could have an effect. Do you remember Randy Couture versus James Toney? Do you remember that fight?
I remember the fight, but I don't. It's all a blur.
So all Randy Couture did is he ankle picked James Toney, and Tony couldn't do anything, and the fight was over. Like, it was just very simple. And that was the MMA fight where the boxer
Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
had to adapt to the MMA rules. In this case, it is similar to that Floyd and McGregor fight. This is boxing rules, and so Ngannou is, not to say that he's a jiu-jitsu specialist in any way or anything, but he's basically going into the sport of the guy who most consider the top heavyweight in boxing today, and probably the top heavyweight in boxing since I don't know, since the Klitschko era, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe people consider Tyson to be
but
at that level,
the
or maybe
Klitschko
more.
era. The Klitschko era was a very dull heavyweight boxing.
They didn't have any opponents. Yeah, there was
had nobody, and
Yeah.
they wrestle such a defensive, slow style where they just beat you. Fury does the same thing, but at least he's exciting. He does a little.
Well, Fury had the fights with Deontay Wilder, and that
those are
kind
great.
of, Deontay Wilder forced him into the action. He showed that he could also fight in a way where he's going to have to throw his hands. And so the thing, and I told Dave this, and I heard Dave use this line on Wrestling Observer Radio last night. The thing that I was laughing about is, at the same time that he has this supposedly big prize fight this weekend, he is also scheduling his next fight, which is him and Usyk. And Usyk he's a smaller guy, but just as high level of a boxer. He's probably better at a slightly lighter weight, but he knows the money is in the heavyweight division. And Usyk is supposed to fight Fury. Now, we'll see if that fight happens, but just the mere fact that Fury is planning this fight and setting it all up, and it just tells me that he's no worry about Ngannou. And I don't think he should either, because he's gonna dominate this. Now, do you here's another one for you. I got two more for you, and Dave mentioned this again. The Lennox Lewis Brock Lesnar fight that was
That
on
never
tap.
happened.
That never happened. And there's one more. This is probably a little more historic based on it not happening. But Wilt Chamberlain and Muhammad Ali were in talks to have a boxing exhibition, and they went on all the talk shows, and they did the thing where Chamberlain showed his reach to Ali's reach, and Ali would do the scared thing.
I remember that,
and so this whole thing has been going on.
You're forgetting one important
years.
one. You're forgetting one important one. Hogan and Tyson, and Mike Tyson was so scared that a couple nights before they were supposed to finalize the deal, he just threw himself on the ground so Buster Douglas beats him. He took the die for Buster Douglas so he doesn't have to face Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
I think people forget that one.
I guess there was a real conversation about Tyson and Hogan back in the day, but
they did the tease on Arsenio Hall. Remember that?
I don't remember that.
They did the tease. So Hogan's on Arsenio, and so is Mike. and they went to a commercial. They were coming back from a commercial, and they did a face-to-face during the commercial. And I remember seeing, I'm like, man, this is freaking cool, right? Because like Tyson was like the greatest ever.
Yeah.
One of those, talking about the celebrity boxing stuff that we're doing, and then obviously you want to go into our fun segment here.
Yeah.
I would say something that we got robbed from, right,
Okay.
during the pandemic was a proper Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight. Because they were building that thing up. That was right when the pandemic happened. It was a disaster, right? Snoop Dogg was on commentary. It was a nightmare. But holy moly! First of all, Tyson looked like a monster.
Mm-hmm.
That man is not wired like anybody else. And I was so into it that I was going to see Mike Tyson back, and Mike looked like $1,000,000. I mean, he's 50-something years old. He looked as good as he can, but I don't know many 50-something-year-olds, and that was going to lead to the Holyfield fight.
Yes. Yes.
And what happened there? It fell apart.
Well, who did Holyfield? He also had a fight when
he did.
I forgot who he fought. Was it like Vitor Belfort or somebody like that?
It was something ridiculous. Yeah. It was Belfort. Yeah, it was Vitor Belfort. Yeah.
And did Holyfield win that fight? I don't remember what happened there.
I don't remember. I think so.
I'm gonna look it up real quick.
No, maybe Belfort won. Hold on. I'm looking at this right now. Yeah, Belfort won.
Oh man. Well, the thing is, yeah. So supposedly the Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight did like really great business. And like you said, they were setting up the Tyson Holyfield. And my thing with Tyson is just like, there's just some people who have your number. And I think if Vander Holyfield has your number, dude, like, yeah, it's going to just be, and they would have both made a ton of money and it would have been worth it. But yeah, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So who knows? Okay, let's go to what I wanted to end the show on, which is this idea of who are the best hangs, do you think, in pro wrestling? Now, again, you've broken bread with some folks. I have too.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about from their characters and what you gain, what you get out of them in wrestling. Like, again, Damian Priest to me looks like the coolest dude in the world to hang out with. Jey Uso is kind of like another one of my favorites because, he's from the Bay Area or he's lived in the Bay Area. Family comes from the Bay Area. I'm sure there will be, there'd be some connections with the 49ers and all that. But, just the idea of like, who's just cool on wrestling, who are you big? You know what? I would go out. I would go out with that dude and have a drink with, he and his family.
So I could give you from personal experience without naming names. Okay.
Okay.
I'll name one. I'll name the positives, not the negatives. Okay. Rob Van Dam, awesome hang. Okay. I had some video, I think. I had the greatest time hanging out with him at a topless pool at Sapphire.
All I remember from that video is there was just like
Katie
twerking, yeah. just twerking, just happening around, like
just happening around, and I was no selling it. Yeah, just no selling. I don't see anything. That was that. It's wild because that day was a total daze. I landed in Vegas. I got to that pool. We did the interview because he was hosting an event there for SummerSlam. And I was on so much cold medicine because I was so sick. I didn't have COVID, but I was sick. That I just had to get through the next couple days. So I just loaded up. And then, of course, Rob's there. So, of course, a little 420 action's happening. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, I'm in the pool with my clothes. I have no idea how it happened. Rob is doing this. He's doing a 5-star frog splash into the pool. It was unbelievable. He was drinking like Mai Tais or something. That was great. I also had a terrible experience where the night started great with a former wrestler, and it ended off with him screaming at me over Dave Meltzer and what a dirt sheet I am. That also happened. And it was just an entire, just bringing up things from past observer issues with the name and what it said and how it wasn't true. So I had one of those also. Fun. But as far as like, who do you want it? Like, I could tell you my top.
Yeah.
Damien, you said Damien, right? I'd love to
Yeah.
hang out with Damien.
Yeah.
I have a very close mutual friend with him, and they speak nothing but great words about Damien. Damien Priest for sure. Andrade 130%. I want
Andrade.
to hang
Yeah.
out with him. Um, like I don't know who would be my type. Who would be my? I mean, Matt Riddle I'd want to hang out with, but I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. That's the other part. There may
Yeah.
be a little bit of trouble coming with some of these folks. I can say that historically, so we got to go back like 10 years now. I would always tell Dave, I would say, hey, Dave, whenever Rick is in town, Ric Flair,
I thought
let
Matt
us
Steiner.
know.
Yeah.
Let us know because I just want to have a drink with that dude. Now, then between now and when I told him, Rick had his issues, I think Rick may still be drinking, even though maybe he's not supposed to be drinking, whatever. So that may not ever happen. But Dave's like, oh yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you when we get together. Whenever Rick's in town, I usually get to go, visit him or see him at the hotel or whatever.
Yeah,
and that just
how do you
never
not go?
happened. Yeah, and it just never happened. And that's a thing that I was kind of bummed out because me and my Fight Game podcast co-host John LaRocca's a bigger Ric Flair guy than even I am. So he was like, "Oh, we got to go," and it just never happened. So that was one that I wanted to happen, and
Yeah.
didn't happen. This is the historic one though. Unfortunately, I was not involved in the shot, but it was Brian Alvarez, Dave Meltzer, and the rapper Wale at Wale
Yeah, Dave
Mania.
Meltzer's favorite rapper. Yeah.
At Wale Mania. And I will tell you, I have never seen Dave even take a sniff of alcohol in my life. Not a glass of wine, not even soda. He's a water and orange juice guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
he has a very strict diet.
And Wale was selling, I don't know what the liquor was. It was a brown liquor. And he was selling it there. And so he's like, all right, Dave, Brian, got to get a shot. And Brian was there. Brian was game. And Dave kind of had this thing. He's like holding it in his hand. And then they took the shot. And then Wale peer pressured Dave into taking a shot of whatever it was, Courvoisier or whatever it was. Dave had to shoot it. And I was like, wow. The first time I've ever seen Dave even have any alcohol.
Awesome. I love that. I would love to be. You know what? I regret not being there. I would have.
You know who would be fun? I think Cena would be pretty fun. Like if it was like the Cena from like 15 years ago. The Cena of now is a little bit too corporate, movie star, entertainer.
Well, the Cena that went on Howard Stern and he spoke about his
that one could have got
us
in trouble. Yeah, that one could have got us in trouble. That Cena for sure. Who else would be a good hang? Does anybody in the chat have any ideas on who they think would be a cool hang?
Well, let's look current talent, right? Current talent. Right?
Well, you got to say Jericho, right? Jericho knows.
I'd love to get a drink with Jericho. Yeah. We would talk about podcasting. Austin, listen, how do you not want to hang out with Steve Austin? Yeah. Dwayne, would Dwayne be a good hang? I feel like Dwayne's
got to get to the PJ. No, he's got to get to the PJ. Like it's like I have 10 minutes. I got to get to the PJ, and then I'm out. And in those 10 minutes while we're talking, I'm doing dumbbell curls. Like that's just what it is with Rock.
I don't want to expose current talent. Because
we're talking about all
out
old
habits.
That's what I'm saying. We're talking about older people who are our age or older, right? Like Damian Priest I think he's in his like young 40s. So he's on the younger side. But, I can say I've been out with Cody, not out. I've been in public places where Cody and actually it was at StarCast, Cody and Brandy. And just as a conversationalist, I thought Brandy was way more interesting than Cody. Yeah. Who else is out there? I think.
Listen, here's the thing. I'm a partier, right? I drink. So it would be, and I'm sure in a normal environment, some of these guys, I could be a teetotaler too. Give me a lunch and I'll hang out with you. I'll have a great time. But if we're talking like a party environment, it's a very select few because you want You want to be with someone that has some sort of self-control.
Who did producer John say?
There we go. Oh, Kenny Omega would be a good hang, says Andrew in the chat.
Okay. That's a different hang, though.
Yeah. We're
You're
talking
playing
a little bit of degeneracy.
No, look. I can hang with Kenny Omega. I'm not a big Street Fighter
me
guy.
Too.
But if there was a different, like if we're playing No Mercy from the old Nintendo 64, then I'm down. I'll go ahead.
There's nothing more than that I want than being in Harley Race's basement and getting yelled at by him, and getting thrown out after being there for 25 minutes. That's kind of the vibe I like.
I got one. Someone who's injured right now. I bet you Big E is like just the funnest dude.
All those New Day guys. You know who's actually people are gonna think I'm nuts. Enzo. Right? Enzo would be a blast. I would hang out with him all weekend.
Not only are you
I don't know if I'd be alive. He's nuts. Yeah, he's crazy. Another crazy person. He's a Northeast guy. They're all nuts. We're all crazy. It's interesting because you kind of don't know. You're basing this based off of a character that people are playing on TV. I got to tell you, Lance Storm, biggest partier I know. You would never know that. Lance is hanging off of chandeliers. I mean, wild nights.
I would hang out with Lance, but for a much different reason.
Yeah, I'd love to hang
that
out
reason.
With
We just talk wrestling and current events and stuff that's going on. But Lance would be. I do hope I get to meet Lance physically in person one of these days. That would be a lot of fun. I could say the one. We've mentioned just a bunch of dudes, and we're being respectful, to our significant others. We can't just fanboy over all of these Attitude Era superstars we watch. But Trish Stratus, I was at the Cauliflower Alley Club when she was, I forget, she won the award for, I don't remember the award, but so I was like within, and this is probably like 6 or 7 years ago, I was like very close in her vicinity, and I was like, okay, everything, as far as her look, her charisma, everything about her, like everything you thought of and more. Like she was just awesome. And then her team stole some photos that I put and posted them on their website. And I was like, hey man, because it's Trish, you can have them.
Yeah. You know who's a great hang? I will tell you. Okay. When I had the best time hanging out with Natty and Tamina.
No way.
At the Garden. Yeah. I've told that story on Matt Man. Rich and I had a freaking blast with them. Great people. We just got along and we hung out until they were done with the thing, but we were hanging out. Great. That really just two amazing people.
I will say the one person I would not want to hang out with based on their pro wrestling character, Roman Reigns. I just don't want to get yelled at. I don't want him to frown at me when I try to run an audible on the playbook and he gets mad. That's not one.
Well, I have a rule. I don't hang out with wrestlers that have better hair than me. Okay. I get severe hair envy and I don't want to be there anymore. There's a lot of those guys. Listen, at the end of the day, I think it must be difficult, right? That people make this assumption of who you are, your character, without knowing a thing about you.
Yeah,
and they just based on what they see on television for like the 20 minutes that you're on a week.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I'll end with this one. You know who I don't want to hang out with? Grayson Waller. Absolutely not hanging out with that dude. Just no. When the wrestling media team of Sean Ross Sapp and Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer, they all have more Twitter followers than you. I'm not. That tells me you're not a true reality star / influencer. No, I just like giving Grayson Waller stuff because so many people like him, and I'm just like, come on, man, he's an influencer. He's got 20,000 Twitter followers. What's going on? Yeah. All right, Grayson, I think that's it.
That's it.
Do you have one more?
You know what? No, I want to know what the audience thinks. Tweet us.
Yeah,
I want to know who you want to hang out with because sometimes it's a different reason.
Yeah, because sort of the age differences. Like, I don't know. There may be somebody who's like, yeah, Austin Theory looks like a good hang. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But he might be. Maybe he is. Good kid.
John, our producer, who did you say you want to hang out with? Oh, one more in chat. Let's see. There was Kenny. Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. Maybe them.
Does Orange Cassidy talk? What is this? It's just thumbs up, thumbs down.
Hey, he does the Fonzie. Hey.
All
I
right.
made that reference. Nobody got it at work.
I got to get off to a work meeting, so I think
right.
we need to end this.
Me too.
But
I gotta get
for
out of here.
Andrew, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.